How's it going, my bakers? Hope you're having an awesome day so far. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'll show you how to make a unique swirl bread with charcoal and sweet potatoes. Let's go to the kitchen and check it out. Although this loaf may look a little bit trippy, it is just a simple sandwich bread. Nice and soft, slightly sweet, it cuts beautifully, and it will go well with anything you can throw at it. The activated charcoal though may look dark and menacing, but it's just the color. It does not taste any different, because activated charcoal is odorless and tasteless. I have used this ingredient previously, making a black charcoal loaf with goji berries and some black burger buns too. You could add it to any bread dough to make it black. I think it fits in perfectly with the Halloween theme, and it's super simple because all you need to do is add the charcoal to the dough. So let me show you how it's done, starting with the ingredients. Since we're making two doughs, we need two sets of ingredients. Both of them will contain white bread flour, yeast, salt, sugar, softened butter, and egg yolk. The sweet potato dough will contain cooked mashed sweet potato instead of water. The charcoal dough will be made with water, and it will contain activated charcoal. If you want, you can replace the sweet potato with cooked pumpkin, or for an even more unique effect, you could use purple yam. I think purple and black would look really cool together. Now you may ask, what about the egg whites left over from the egg yolks? You can use them for glazing the loaf, and that is if you're going to bake it without the lid on. Or you can replace the liquid in the charcoal dough with the egg white. I ended up using them for another project. The egg yolks are the main thing that we're after here. They make the bread extra soft and fluffy. Okay, when it comes to the ingredients, we'll need a couple of bowls, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, a rolling pin, and we'll need a baking tin. I'm using my USA Pan 2-pound Pullman loaf tin. It measures around 9 inches or 23 centimeters long, 4 inches or 10 centimeters wide, and 4 inches or 10 centimeters deep. If you're going to use a regular 2-pound loaf tin, reduce the recipe ingredients by 20%. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's begin. First, preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 355 Fahrenheit. Peel and dice the sweet potato, or whichever vegetable you choose to use. Place it in a baking tray and cover it with foil so it doesn't dry out as it bakes. Now pop it in the oven and leave it to bake for around 40 minutes or until it's completely soft. Once the potato is fully cooked, take it out of the oven, pop it in a bowl and mash it up using a fork. You could also use a food processor to make it extra fine, or even pass it through a sieve. I don't mind having little sweet potato fibers in the dough. After mashing it up, cover it and leave it to cool down completely. It's important to cover it up so it doesn't lose too much of its moisture. My kitchen is around 24 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. So I'll just leave the sweet potato to cool down to room temperature, and I'll use room temperature water for the charcoal dough too. After mixing, the final dough temperature will go up by a degree or two, which is exactly what we're after. If you want to learn more about no-knead bread dough temperature control, check out my video about it in the Principles of Baking playlist. Okay, when it comes to making the dough, ideally make them at the same time, because we want them to ferment at the same time more or less. Both of them are mixed the same way. Combine all the ingredients except the flour, then mix until smooth, and finally add the flour, and then grab the dough scraper and mix to a dough. Remember to wash your hands after handling each dough, because they will stain each other if you don't. The doughs will feel slightly different from each other. The sweet potato one will not be as soft. The charcoal one will be slightly sticky. And that is totally normal, so don't be alarmed. If the charcoal dough is sticking to your hands, you can wet your hands with water. That will stop it from sticking. And that goes for any type of sticky dough that you may need to handle. Okay, once you have finished mixing, place the dough in a clean bowl and take its temperature. Around 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit is what we're after. That's what we got. If your dough is warmer, it'll ferment more rapidly. If it's cooler, it'll take longer. Adjust the fermentation times accordingly. But at this temperature, the bulk fermentation should take around 2 hours. When it comes to making no-knead bread, folding replaces kneading. So halfway through bulk fermentation, give your dough a fold. After it's been fermenting for 1 hour, take it out of the bowl, place it on the table with the smooth side down, then flatten it out, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach point where it started. Then flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, and that is the fold done. The dough can go back into the bowl, you can cover it up, leave it to ferment for 1 more hour. These doughs are not very sticky at all, so there's no need to use flour. But if yours is sticking for any reason, do give it a light dusting, it won't hurt. You know bulk fermentation is over when the dough has doubled in size. And this looks done to me, so we can move on to the next step. The beauty of this recipe is its simplicity. Straight after bulk fermentation, we can do the final shaping. Start with the sweet potato dough, because it is larger than the other one and it will form the outside of the loaf. Dust the dough and the table generously with flour. Then flatten the dough by hand, and after that, grab a rolling pin and roll it out to a large rectangle. It should be as wide as the baking tin and about twice as long. Make the charcoal dough just slightly smaller than the sweet potato one, because when we go to roll it, we want a little edge of sweet potato dough to overlap the charcoal dough on the bottom. We'll get a nice spiral that way. Making it overlap on the other end will ensure that we hide the charcoal dough from the outside of the loaf. You could also roll the sweet potato dough slightly wider and then fold it around the ends of the loaf. That way, you could surprise people and catch them off guard, as the loaf will look completely normal on the outside, but when they cut into it, it will reveal the beautiful black and orange spiral. I didn't do that this time. I did not fold up the ends, as you can see, or whatever you do. After rolling, clean out the mess, and before placing the loaf in the tin, grease it with some butter or with some oil. I do trust my loaf tin. It has not let me down yet, but I still like to grease it just to be safe. I also like how the butter toasts the crust as it bakes. Another option would be to line the tin with some baking paper, and of course you could bake this as a freestanding loaf if you wanted to. In fact, there are many different ways you could twist the doughs together and shape them. You could also do a braided loaf by cutting the dough into strips and then braiding them back together. I'll leave those decisions up to you. Whatever you do, after shaping, cover it and leave it for the final proof. It will take around an hour and a half to 2 hours. During this time, preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius, fan on, and that's 355 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are using a similar baking tin to mine, you should wait for the dough to rise above the rim of the tin. That'll be a perfect indicator for it being ready for the oven. It has more than doubled in size. Obviously now the lid won't fit on it, so use your hands to gently press it down and flatten it out a little bit. To keep things nice and buttery all the way around, I also decided to grease the lid. Okay, so carefully slide on the lid, press the dough down using one hand to make sure it doesn't catch. This bad boy is ready for the oven. The initial bake will take around 40 minutes, but it won't be quite ready yet. You want to take it out, remove it from the tin, and then place it back into the oven for another 10 minutes of baking. This will firm up the crust and ensure that the loaf keeps its shape. I like to place it down on its side, and then flip it over after 5 minutes. That way, it will bake evenly on all sides. And that is it, our loaf is ready. Now leave it to cool down and tuck in. I just love how it looks very unremarkable from the outside, but when you cut into it, it reveals this crazy looking spiral. And when you bite into it, you kinda expect it to taste weird, but it turns out to be a regular sandwich loaf. This is one of my favorite Halloween bakes so far. It is so easy to make. This makes it perfect for any inexperienced bakers too. You know, the channel tagline is subscribe to become a more confident baker. When you're pulling loaves like these out of the oven without putting in any real effort, you'll definitely get a baking confidence boost. And then you can move on to more challenging bakes. So what do you think this recipe? What kind of swirl breads have you made before? Let me know down in the comments. You want to see more videos like this one? Click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.